Welcome back, it's Smashboss here, and in this video I will explain all the setups and trolls in my second troll level for DGR. If you haven't seen him playing this level, then go check out his video first, the link will be in the description down below. So if you've seen it, then let's get right into the level. And instead of making an instant death troll, I decided to make another troll this time. So just by standing there nothing will happen this time, but the first troll is right there. If you try to jump on top of the cloud like this, then there's a hidden block above the cloud and there's no way to get up there then. So instead you need to jump around the block and then get the power block. So now it looks like you somehow have to activate this P-switch right here. Maybe by dropping something onto the node block, which will then release a muncher or something that falls onto the P-switch. So right here you will get this spring and you think you can drop it in there. But first, there's nothing in the node block, and secondly there's also ground right here, so the spring will not even fall on top of the node block, but instead gets stuck in here. And all you actually have to do is to jump up here, since there's a Thwomp off screen that will then automatically activate the P-switch. So then there's this fish, and it looks like the fish would get right in your way, right around here. However, there's a hidden track behind the saw, so the fish is just to make the player panic, so that the player maybe does something wrong and jumps into a pit or something like that. And once you pass the fish, there's one more troll in the P-switch section. So you think that these blocks will transform into coins, so you quickly have to jump away when the P-switch timer runs out. But then you would miss the falling fire flower right here, and you need this flower in order to proceed in the next section right here. So then there's actually two trolls right before this pipe. One troll is to stand on this side of the platform to try to go into the pipe, because there's one piece of ground that overlaps with the one-way gate right here. And the second troll is that there's also an area up on top of this region that you might jump for, and well, you'll get a 1-up, but it doesn't really help you since the platform that you need to go into the pipe is now gone. So actually you have to stand in the middle and then run to the pipe quickly right here. And then there's this area where right when you come out of the pipe you can barely see a muncher on top of this block for a few seconds. So once you fall down here you see the block where the muncher is on top of, and you see the piranha plant, and it looks like there's a key inside of the piranha plant. So maybe you'll think, how can I keep my mushroom and still kill the piranha plant? Just by breaking this block and dropping the muncher onto the piranha plant. And that's the intended troll right here. However, what you actually have to do is grab the hidden power block behind the piranha plant's head and then kill this muncher right here. And then it looks like the level goes on by going on top of this platform right here. However, this area leads nowhere. Actually, you have to go into this pipe, and then there's already the first checkpoint. So now you're in this area right here, and the idea behind this is that right there's a muncher with a launcher on top, so if the muncher somehow gets killed, the launcher will fall down and block your path. So right here, if you throw the shell in by kicking it, it looks like it would activate the power block, which would then block your path up here. So the idea is that the player comes to the conclusion to drop the beetle in there instead, which would then be the real troll, since there's a hidden skull platform behind this launcher, and the hitbox of this skull platform is just barely enough so that it extends over the hitbox of the launcher. However, you still cannot see it at all. But the simple solution is the best one. In this case, you just have to throw it. There's a block behind the saw, so the power block will never get activated. So then there's this little area right here that should make the player curious, because there looks like there's a block, but there's not. And that's all just to make the player wait for long enough so that this burner right here drops on his head. Then, if you jump right there, there's an area where it looks like the coins would already turn into blocks, and the other way around when the first muncher falls down. So the idea here is that the player already jumps at the first muncher, and the reason why it only activates the P-switch once the second muncher falls down is because the first muncher is a muncher on a track, and these will not activate the P-switch like that, and the second one is a normal muncher that just takes a little bit longer to fall down. So that's why this one will activate the P-switch and the first one will not. So then, once the P-switch is active, you can jump across here, and then there's this area up here that is basically just another troll path that doesn't lead anywhere but into this cannon right there. And there's yet another troll right here. So in this area, the fire bar right there makes you do things quickly, because if you wait too long, the fire bar will get in your way and kill you. So you make a quick decision and decide to go into the pipe. However, fire bars are also one of the few items that can be placed on top of a door. And that's why the real solution right here is to go in the door that's hidden behind the fire bar. And then there's one final trick before the second checkpoint, and the trick is to activate this power block here too soon. So then there will be a muncher that suddenly drops out of nowhere and falls into this spot right here. So first, how do you solve this? By activating the power block in this area right here, where the muncher will just go above Mario's head. And second, how does this even work? And that's because of a setup yet again with launchers and enemies behind them. So there are two munchers right here behind this launcher in the middle, and that's actually all you need, because once these munchers are placed right there behind the launcher, automatically as soon as this muncher right here is gone, the second muncher or one of the munchers behind this launcher decides to teleport down here, and then it hits the sideways spring, which then bounces it right into this region right here. So that's why even if you kill one muncher with the power, so once you're at the second checkpoint, you will immediately get a power block, and it looks like you have to drop it in there in order to go through the door. However, this won't work because there is already ground underneath the door. It just looks like it would only be the shadow of the door, since the top of this semi-solid is actually so thin that it just basically doesn't even look different than if it would actually be above the spike. But once you know that, you can go through the door, and then you can quickly go through the pipe. And this troll is actually a reference to the first troll level for DGR. In the first one, the troll was to even get the star and go through the star maze. this time the star maze is the right solution, but there's still a troll, since last time the star was also on a track, which means that even if I kill the Muncher, it will just go back and forth until I collect it. However, this time there's just a track behind the star, so the star is not actually connected to the track. So if you activate the power block at the wrong time, the star might just fall into the pit. So once you know that, you can get the star and go through the star maze. And you'll get a red coin behind each of these saws, except for the last one. There's a note block behind the last one that bounces you up into the area right there. Also, if you manage to jump above the note block in the first try, you still have star power. So in order to prevent you from going to this area up here with the star, I made a wiggler right here that you have to jump on in order to get up there, so that you can only jump on the wiggler once the star runs out. So then it looks like you have to throw this shellmet right here at the power block. However, there's ground behind the saw blade, so that will not happen. Instead, you have to put the shellmet on and then stand on top of the Muncher and walk down at the side of it, since the top of the Muncher is a few pixels lower than the ground right here. That's the reason why you can then just walk off the edge and you will not land on top of this ground anymore. So the next troll is a troll if you try to react quickly once you see the Thwomp right here. So you'll try to run to the right in order to not get hit by the Thwomp. But the Thwomp will not fall down, but instead move to the right. And that's because of a trick that connects enemies that are actually not really visibly connected, but they are still somehow connected. So right here we have this Muncher and the Thwomp, and they're connected with this launcher right here that doesn't spawn because there's ground right here where the launcher is. However, somehow the connection between the Thwomp and the Muncher is still there, and so when the Muncher down there gets bounced to the side by the sideways spring, the Thwomp will just try to do the same movement and also goes to the right like this. Then there's this Thwomp right here with the Muncher on top, and there's a sideways spring behind this cannon. So the easy troll is to see the Thwomp and think, well, I have to activate it first. And the second troll is, as I said, the hidden sideways spring right here that then drops the Muncher on top of your head if you stand right here. So actually you want to go right here, activate the Thwomp, go all the way back and then jump there. And if you did this all in one go from the star section on, then you would now have a key. So this one is basically just a fish block. So then there's a troll that is yet another one where if you go for this block and try to see what's inside the block, then the pipe will get blocked by the sideways spring that comes out of it. So in this area right here, you just have to quickly go through a pipe before the sideways spring can spawn. And once you're through this pipe, you're already at the final troll. So there's only one way to go. If you go that way, you will end up directly above the goal. However, it looks like you have to activate a P-switch in order to get there. So you go back to find the P-switch. But when you enter this room again, a P-switch automatically activates. So you think, oh, I can just go back and win. But then you will end up directly above the first checkpoint. And the way this works is by using a lot of stacked pipes. So first of all, there is 2 copies of this room right here that look exactly the same. even with all the surroundings right here, I just made basically 2 rooms that look exactly the same, except that this one has the automatically activated P-switch in the top. However, you cannot see this from down here, you can just hear that the P-switch gets activated. So when you first exit the pipe from the sideways spring through, you'll end up in this room right here that doesn't have a P-switch. And then there's actually just this pipe. However, if you go through this pipe and go back, you will not end up in the same room, but in the copy with the P-switch instead. And then there's yet another stacked pipe behind this one, so that if you go back once again, you will then end up above the first checkpoint. And the real solution is then, since it's a copy of the room, the other pipe on the other side is also a different one. And that's the solution. Once the P-switch is active, you can go through this pipe in the second room and then just finish the level. So that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed the video.